Hello and welcome to my podcast. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. So it's just me, so solo podcast with yours truly, Claire. Moi. And what I'm going to do is I will be talking about a really important topic that I've been doing a lot of research on with many different people from different backgrounds around the topic burnout. So it's something that many of us unfortunately have experienced, and my objective is very much to recognize it, try and eliminate it before we get too far and we feel a bit hopeless, and also tools that we can incorporate, such as talking to friends, family, employers, to help support us. So before we go into that, I would love to ask you, if you are enjoying my podcasts, please like and subscribe. And this is episode 21 of Off the Rails. So as mentioned, I went out a little while ago, about a month ago now, actually, and I started gathering information around what burnout looks like for everybody individually, because it is different. We're all different and different things trigger us. So that being said, I wanted to make sure I got feedback from people in lots of different industries. As you may or may not know, my background is fashion, and I was in the industry for 20 years. I myself had experienced burnout very early in my career for many different reasons, which I'll go into a little bit later. But with that being said, I wanted to understand people from different backgrounds. So I've got people that are studying, people that are background in law, people in UX design, people in marketing, lots of different areas, so that we can see, and get a really good understanding of what burnout looks like, and then it isn't just for somebody in a certain position. That doesn't matter. You can experience burnout at many different times of your career. And as I just mentioned, actually, some of mine was in the earlier part of my career because of the sheer weight and expectations that I put on me. So I want to just kind of put a quote, and if I can, when I edit this on YouTube, I'm going to put the slideshow with all of the feedback from those that gave me, as I say, their insights on there. So you have the slideshow to refer to as well. But one thing that I did kind of find really interesting was some of the feedback around, when I feel a certain way, overwhelmed, I'm feeling like maybe this is a burnout or I'm getting into a burnout stage, that I squash those feelings because I should be grateful to have a job. I am employed. I just kind of this kind of mentality of shut up and put up. And that's what I want to kind of change throughout this process. It's not going to happen overnight. I completely get that, but just I want to plant the seed and get some reminders in there of how things look and what we can do about them. So one of the first questions that I did ask when I went out, and did the survey was, can you share a time where you felt overwhelmed by work? What did that look like? So I got completely different answers, which was great because that's what I was looking for. I was looking for honest answers. And hopefully when I go through some of these, which I'll quote right now, you will hopefully find, oh yeah, I recognize that. That's how I felt. So I'm going to go through them. Some of the answers, like this one, daily, I'm in a burnout state right now. That's not okay. This person is feeling completely overwhelmed. I can imagine when they go to bed at night, they're dreading the next day. When they wake up in the morning, they're dreading the whole day, regardless of what might happen. They've already set themselves up in that state for a negative day. So this is kind of big red flag if you're feeling that way. Another answer was last year. This person had got to their boiling point and that was enough. So, somebody recognized that they kind of tipped the top and there was no way of fixing it. So they had to do something about it, which was ultimately resigning from their role. Another was almost always whilst they were working in corporate, the environment in general did not suit them. The culture never felt like they were a part of the whole corporate industry, and couldn't keep up with the whole pace, everything that it was. So just understanding and recognizing that the corporate world wasn't for them, which takes a lot to actually understand, commit to that, knowing that you're not in the right environment and doing something about it, and knowing what to do about it is another thing as well. So, like, just to remind, this is just the first point of how people recognized that they were either getting into a burnout stage or they, had been there. Another one which I find really interesting is something that actually probably a lot of people will experience right now is onboarding remotely. So this person had fed back to me, they got a new job, they were onboarding remotely, and it so happened that their new line manager didn't even have time to onboard them virtually. It was all done by, here's a link, read this, if you've got any questions, let me know. This particular person couldn't learn that way. It wasn't good enough, let's say, that there was a link sent. They needed questions answered. They needed this face-to-face virtually to onboard them correctly. So what that did was make them feel overwhelmed, make them feel like, I've got so many questions, maybe I'm not capable. So you can see how this, can start to spiral into this anxious state and make you feel like I'm only in through the door and I already feel like I'm overwhelmed. I'm not in the right position. Then some more feedback was deadlines to meet. So people being given unrealistic deadlines, carrying out tasks and leaving them feel frozen and unable to move forward. So overwhelmed that, as people may say, make a to-do list, make a priority. It's okay if you can do that, but there's also a step before that where you're so overwhelmed that you literally feel frozen in the spot and you cannot see the next step. So these are, again, examples of where people have felt burnout. This was actually one of my own examples from many years ago where I was in a startup business and I would have my manager, the owner, text me at like 9-10 p.m. That would just be the norm. I've just had an idea. And with that information, I would panic because one, I would be so exhausted. I was in bed by that time. And also, do you want me to act on it now? Should I write it down and keep it for the morning? Like, what is it? But this person was just brain dumping on me. And I was so overwhelmed that, again, I couldn't sleep. I was anxious on the way to work. I already had a huge to-do list from the day before. Then my nightly tasks were building up. It was just a lot. So that's a little bit of my experience as well. And one of the key feedback that I got in this section that I want to bring kind of, let's say, to the table was a student as well, somebody that's studying, and they're often feeling overwhelmed by deadlines and overall progress. So they're in a research stage, they're trying to put all of this information together. So people can feel it in many ways. To conclude this kind of first part, whether you're in a corporate, whether you're working for yourself, whether you're a student, we can feel overwhelmed and this state of burnout in lots of different stages of our life. So it's validated no matter where you are. So once I gathered that bit of information, I started to understand, okay, everybody feels it differently. Everybody's starting to react differently to burnout. I asked the next question, which was, how do you cope with that? When you're starting to feel this way, what is it you do? What kicks in to make you kind of, continue to the next day and continue to show up to, your studies or your work? So this is some advice that I hope kind of you can take from this part. So one answer was taking time out, even for a short period of time, helped stepping away from my desk. Tasks gave me the perspective I needed to push forward. So just getting away from your desk. If you sit there, it won't come to you. Sometimes you have to go out. It may be going for a walk. It may be talking to somebody. It may be writing that list and saying, okay, this actually has a priority because it has an effect on me and the business. This is just something that is kind of a nice to do, and this is something that I can park for X amount of time. So trying to kind of create that almost traffic light system of your work and working that way with it. So that was one tip. Another one was where this person felt. So they felt like there was no way out, so they resigned. They had asked their manager. They had asked for extra support, for less work. Unfortunately, their manager didn't hear them. So that resulted in this person thinking, I've got no way out and I'm my priority right now. So that means I have to resign from this role. And this happens over and over again. And I really hope that, there are leaders listening to this that are listening, yes, of course, for their own reasons for burnout that also happens, but for their team. So if you can start to recognize this person is asking for help, listen to them and action it. There's listening and there's active listening and coming up with solutions to help that person. Another one was a good example, actually, which kind of follows on nicely, was this person talked with their manager about the situation and prioritized a list to set some guardrails of what's possible and what's not possible, given the team that they have to execute the work. Give kind of certain to-dos with execution dates to the manager, aligned on that, and come up with like a plan of, okay, this is what I can do with what I have. Can I get your support that this is okay and these other tasks may need to be outsourced or have to be parked until a later date? So that worked as well. Sitting down with your manager with a list of exactly what is overwhelming you and your team, if that's the case, and putting that into action. So I think having that manager is super important. So do take the time to sit down and talk it through. It does help to talk with somebody else, and those managers and team leads are in those positions. This is part of their role to do that. I was a team lead. It's part of your role to support your team that actually executes and does the job. Another one, which is a good tip, again, for anybody out there listening, which is this person I'm reading through here is kind of a manager of some sort, whatever level that is, it doesn't matter. You're a manager, you're looking after people, yourself and other people. Always remember that. It's about yourself too. Now implemented monthly meetings where we can express our thoughts and feelings, and those are taken away and acted upon. I also have a conflicting feedback where other people have had these kind of get-togethers off-site, but they feel like there's a lot of work that goes into them but not followed up. So please, if you are doing these things, if you're either hosting these meetings, please make sure they actually get done. People are trusting in you to give you their thoughts that they need something to change. So please put that into place. I think that's super important. And also for those that, you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, keep pushing that, things do need to change. The more we talk, the more things will happen. Another person said they have a therapist stroke coach. So this really helps. She's helped me tackle a lot of anxiety that I feel at times, and talking it through and having an outsider's perspective really helps. So that's also something that a lot of people rely on and feel like, okay, if I have a non-biased opinion and I can kind of offload to somebody that I can trust in a different realm outside of maybe the working environment, or if you're self-employed, it's hard to know who to talk to. You're on your own. A therapist or a coach or whatever you need is out there. So take that on board and trust that you deserve that attention, Time management has been a way for this person to cope with procrastination, setting small goals for the day, celebrating small wins, which I agree, we can often get caught up in looking at the bigger picture and we forget to enjoy and celebrate. So for this person, recognition and celebration is really important. If they're doing little things to reward that in whatever way it is, in a small round of shouting somebody out and celebrating that helps to think, okay, I've achieved something. Now I feel much more empowered and I can tackle the next task. So it looks different for everybody. We've spoke about just literally having to walk out, somebody going for a walk, prioritizing lists, having a coach, talking to a manager, having offsites, and for this person, it's celebrating wins. So if we see how it looks different for everybody, there is something in there that we can all kind of adopt and foster into our daily habits. Another one here is closing on this area is this person unfortunately started having panic attacks. That's how they reacted when they felt so overwhelmed. Their anxiety really kicked in, going to bed anxious, waking up feeling anxious, never feeling like they gave enough. Therefore, the only option was to leave. So we hear that too many times, and I want to make sure we build in enough kind of a bit of a trust wall with peers, with managers, and anybody else, whether it's a coach or whatever this may be, to really ensure we have a workaround and we do what we express supports moving forward as opposed to moving out. If you could implement one change in your workplace to improve mental health and work-life balance, what would that be? So this was my third question. The answers I got there was somebody felt like they left corporate was the only way. Working for themselves or working for a smaller company was much more suited to who they were, the fundamental values that they had, and that really worked. Others here were work-life balance with regards to working from home and in the office. So having that let's call it two-place working environment really has helped. So working from home, they can be in their own environment and actually produce much more. And then on the days where they do have to go into the office and work with peers because this is more effective on particular projects or whatever it may be, certain meetings, that balance has helped them. Yeah, there's another one here, which I think is really important. Burnout, anxiety, and depression are huge. So talking openly, maybe offering counseling, workshops on time management can really help internally in businesses. And people come together and feel like they're in a safe space. So whether that's one-on-one, or you come together as like a small working group and you express how you're feeling in this trusting circle environment. I think that's really important. It's a really good topic to bring up. And many people, do suffer from anxiety, and they have that as a foundation anyway. And then on top of that, going to work and feeling even more anxious, there needs to be a support. There needs to be this built in. So I think definitely speaking about that openly in a workplace and making sure you have those regular drop-ins, whatever that looks like, I think that's a really, really good piece of advice. Well-being check-ins with line managers, not just one-to-ones. So sometimes it's just all business. You jump right into, okay, what's on? What have you got? When are you doing this? By when? And then there's very little time for, how are you? How's your week going? How's your workload? Is there anything that you may not get to this week? Why and how can we help you with that? Or how do I give that to somebody else? There's very little time for that sometimes within the working environment. But in fact, if we made time for that, I think the rest of our working experience would be much, much smoother. So it's again about prioritizing somebody over the work. Another one here is normalizing people working different hours. So this is super interesting. This person has expressed having worked in flexible environments before, having changed recently into a different role, very structured with 9 to 5, really rigid, has made the working environment really cold, a bit isolated. Whereas if you bring in a bit more flexibility, yes, there are meetings to be had so that everybody shows up between certain core hours, but in general, if the work permits it, have a bit more flexibility, and that shows more trust in your team and also what works for everybody else. There may be working parents or guardians that need to bring their children to school. You know what, between these hours, I need to have a bit of flex, but I will be at this meeting and I will make up my time elsewhere, whatever that looks like. So really valid point. Last kind of area to touch on within this particular, question that I had, and I love this one actually, is focus on results and have a flexible working schedule. Leave work-related communication for the working hours, which I truly believe in. We have core working hours. No emails, no phone calls outside of working hours. I think really respect each other. I spoke about it earlier, which was I used to get these messages, these phone calls at 9, 10 p.m. at night. It just played havoc with my nervous system. And it was horrible, really, really horrible. And it affected my home life. And I just don't think any of us get paid enough for that. Whether money doesn't make up for anything, but I think our home life is exactly that, and our work life is a different thing. And I think when the two start to merge, that's when we feel all of these negative things. So make sure that we can cut off from one to the other. And then I hope that kind of part helped a lot as well. A lot to kind of take in and digest. And what I'm loving about these answers is they're so different, again, because everybody's experience is different. From that, my other question then was, how do you prioritize well-being when faced with tight deadlines? So this was something that triggered a lot of people, was when they're put under timing restrictions, there's something to be met by a certain time. And of course, we all have deadlines. That's how the world works. So we can't avoid them. But how do we work with them? So I'm going to talk you through again the answers that I got, and again, kind of elaborate on some of them. And my wish here is that you hear something that resonates with you and you know how to act on it. So clear communication to stakeholders, making it clear from the outset what you want, by when, and what needs to be delivered. Any possible delays then makes it easier for you to manage and all parties, and reduces stress on yourself. I think this is a great answer because I often have been given projects with a loose deadline and a loose strategy, and it doesn't work, because when it comes to it, that person that set the project will often then have a hard deadline the week before. And it's like, well, you didn't tell me that. I needed to know the hard deadline from point one. So if you're getting set something and there isn't clear instructions, it is at that point that you reserve all rights to go back to whoever it is that's setting the project, a manager, any stakeholder, to go back and really, really define that. So that you know exactly what you're working with. And it's great then, because as you're working through it, you can say, okay, I'm on track, or okay, this is a blocker for me, so we need to address it. Somebody needs to help me out, so that you don't get too close to the end. And again, anxiety is picking up. So I think that's a really good tip. Another person here, which has worked for them, is I've pushed back on deadlines that are unrealistic. I find that usually they're negotiable. If not, then we can discuss how we can prevent from being surprised by upcoming deadlines in the future. So, if something just feels like totally unrealistic, have that conversation. Just say, there is no way that I can deliver this with what I have. Therefore, how am I expected to do it? And have those conversations. Is it that you can do a part of it now and a part later? Is it that you get some more support, external support from a different team to do it? Have those conversations and work that through. Don't sit in silence and, feel like you're drowning and you just, I've been asked to do it, so I must do it. Talk it through. We're all human. People don't know unless you express how you're feeling. So make sure that you're doing that. Another one here is about boundaries. So they quote, I think boundaries are important, setting them for yourself as well as those around you. So I pace myself, set small goals every day, and give myself a working schedule. I don't check emails past 7 p.m. and I allow myself to enjoy my weekends and my evenings. So important. You define, again, if you are in a flexible working state, what those hours look like, and try and stick to them best as you can. And if your work doesn't involve you working weekends, don't do it. This, again, that where those lines kind of get blurred between your working environment and your home environment, and just make sure both are separate. Another one here is simply ask for help. So I think it's such a strong statement, often quite hard. It can be to have that courage to ask for help. But it is a sign of strength when you ask for help. So do it, be encouraged by it, talk to peers, talk to friends, and make sure you're asking for help from those that can actually implement that for you. The final two answers here are so good. So let me give you the next one. I try and take short breaks regularly and also do some exercise to get me out of my own head. So we often speak about this, and there's so many links to anxiety, burnout, feeling overwhelmed, which relates to exercise and food. And I know myself, if I'm feeling really, really overwhelmed, I'll be like, I can't go to that class because I don't have enough time. And I haven't got time to make myself something nice for lunch. I'll just have something crap, basically. And it's then this like revolving downward spiral. And I've learned through my own experiences that if I literally just take that 45-minute for a 30-minute session at the gym, giving myself the time that I need to get there and back. I'm very lucky. I live very close. But whatever you need, whatever works for you, and I will have never gone to the gym within my working day and come back and said, oh, I don't feel any better for it. I will 100% feel better for doing that because I've spent time on me that I deserve. And we're all given breaks during the day. It's a legal requirement. So how you use it is up to you. I will go to a quick class and I will prep a quick lunch. And that is how I spend my time that I'm given. So make sure you do the same. Try not to work through your lunch break. It is not a good habit to create. Try not to eat whilst you're working or doing emails. Again, take the time to step away and do it for you. And get into those practices and those rituals. If you can get up every day and sit at your laptop, equally, it's just as important to take your breaks. And another one here, which I often do in the evening as well, so I can resonate with this one, is I calm myself with candles and focus with music. So I set up my desk in the morning. I'll have my coffee. This is just me. I have a bunch of flowers just for proof. Yeah, I need some new flowers. But the point is, everybody has an environment that they feel comfortable in. So I'll have my flowers, I'll have my coffee, and I'll have a candle lit because the smell just relaxes me and it feels nice. It's whatever works for you. And yeah, I think it's very important to create your environment. I work from home, of course, so some of these things aren't always valid if you're working in the office, but whether it's those little comforting things that you can bring and put on your desk so it feels like you, it feels like it brings comfort, basically. It's amazing how those small things can, recenter you, make you feel a little bit more focused and more at ease. I've also heard that, when people do work from home, they have maybe a pet around them. I do as well. I have my dog and he makes me feel more calm. He'll also remind me to take my breaks. So when he needs to go to the toilet, it's also a good, okay, quick 10-minute walk with him. And, these things, whatever it looks like for you, this is my experience. Everybody has their own, but please take on board some of these things. Another one that a lot of people do have is listening to a radio in the background, having your, your earpods in or whatever, and having that music. I personally can't do that because I get super distracted, but it works for other people. So if it works for you, and this is what I want to point out, we're all so unique. What works for you, great, and identify it and put it into practice. So I hope there was some good things in that particular section as well. So yeah, we've kind of been through what I wanted to for this particular session. It was just to recap, what it is that has made you feel overwhelmed at work. Again, I'll put the slides so you can refer to those particular questions, identify what it is for you, maybe some things that, you can look at the feedback and be like, oh yeah, that is how I felt. And I didn't realize that was what it was. I thought I was just having an off week, an off day, an off month. And then what did you do to cope? So there's some tips in there for coping, asking, talking, taking breaks. And then what would you do to implement change? So there's some ideas in there that you can go away and take to, your working environment, maybe, like those well-being sessions, those one-to-ones, maybe workshops. You might be somebody that is a real advocate for this, and you think, okay, well, actually in my work, there is nothing in place right now, and I'd love to create a working group, and it could be something that you feel passionately about, that you want to do that. And the final question, which we just went through, was how do you prioritize well-being when faced with tight deadlines? So I think this is actually one that kind of is the trigger point when people are put in, let's say, a pressure cooker with deadlines. A lot of the time they're unrealistic, and this is what causes unnecessary stress. Those tips that I've just been through that other people have experienced and shared, thankfully, that we can now use and grow on. Take those away and really, challenge, come up with solutions, push back, express what you can deliver within a certain time. And I think those things will gradually help one by one. So that is what I wanted to go over today for burnout. I am here to share experiences. I'm here to make sure that when we talk about things, we can hopefully help each other. That's the purpose of this particular podcast that I wanted to go through. And of course, if you want to reach out to me, I am a coach. I work with people on their careers, whether you're, a student starting out, you're in your mid-career, or you want to switch to something else, because sometimes there is a point in your career where you just don't sit right. And we heard from some of that feedback that just corporate in general wasn't right for that particular person and many in general. So what do I do now? And, if you want a one-on-one session with me, please reach out, and I'm happy to organize that and support. And I hope that those questions and answers that we went through just now does help you. And I've also recently put up some shorts on my YouTube channel with things to recognize from burnout. So your feelings, such as anxiety, sleep deprivation, feeling overwhelmed, all of those things. So how you feel, and again, some tips on how to kind of get yourself out of that state as well. So please do head over to my YouTube channel if you want to have a look at some more of those tips, and like and subscribe. And also I do daily updates on my Instagram as well, with any feedback that I get from clients and followers, where I can help as much as possible on certain topics. But I have shared quite a lot on burnout recently, in and around Mental Health Day, just making sure that people recognize and you feel comfortable and confident with speaking out. We don't all have the same confidence just to push back to a line manager, just to do all those things. So at least start with friends and family, and then peers, and you will often find that people are feeling the same, either in the moment or have had that experience. So a problem shared is a problem halved. So please feel free and open to talk to others. It will definitely help. I hope this session has helped, and something different for me, talking to the camera for so long, not having somebody else to interact with. And thank you to those that have supported me in this research. I've personally found it really helpful as well. I hope you have. And as always, if you enjoy my podcasts, please tune in for the next one. And if you have any topics that you'd like me to further develop on, I'm more than happy to do that. Thank you, and have a great day. Bye, everyone.